on the line Annalise Jennings. A very good morning to you, Annalise, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, look, Annalise, you've been doing a lot of work in community in North Queensland, and from that, you don't always get an outcome from your work every time, but you've been lucky enough to see some outcomes from your work.
It's been a really insightful process, Greg, and I'm not sure that it's about luck, and it's more about the determination of this community to make significant progress. I was in the community about 3 weeks ago to undertake another review, which was to assess the impact of change since implementing this whole of community change process back in 2011. And, I really have to say that 5 years on, it's really pleasing to note that the shifting community attitude has endured. And certainly the message that's come out of this recent review is to continue to connect families with families and continue to build the social capital in the community. But we're seeing some really significant outcomes have been sustained over this period of time.
That's great, isn't it? Look, everything is relative, and I just was reading recently about a country called Bhutan that measures their wealth of the country as gross national happiness. Now, they're not a rich country by any stretch of the imagination, but they measure their outcomes against a background and a measurement of gross national happiness. So maybe we could start looking at some of those sort of measures as we measure things as well.
Well, in fact, what we have been doing with Napranum is undertaking a wellbeing index, and you could very well call that the happiness index. And it actually measures the well-being of the community, the happiness of the community in terms of building its economic sustainability, but also in terms of building the community from the inside and people feeling really happy with the change. And what we've noticed are really significant shifts in measures over the past few years, where in November 2011, we saw what we call a measure of entropy of 32%, which indicates a community in crisis. Over an 18-month period, that entropy then dropped to 9%, which indicates a healthy community. We've run this measurement a couple of times since then, and it's still showing signs of a sustainable community that's committed to its progress. So this measurement tool is a really important factor and something that we've been including over the past few years. So it's not just anecdotal feedback. We've got real data now to back us to say that creating a values-based community where the community gets involved, has ownership for its infrastructure, its services. It's a framework that is working.
Must be something working there, Annalise. I mean, we haven't got a real good history going back from mission days of when people have done their own survey and figured what was going to be good for a community and imposed that particular will on community, even though there were positives that come out of that with communal gardening and butchering and all manner of other things as well. There was a plus side to it, but it's that the problem has always been the community hasn't been really asked what they want.
No, and that's true. And this approach has very much been about extensive engagement and the community taking ownership of its own community plan. But look, we've seen in 2014, when I ran an earlier review, we saw a 40% increase in community-owned infrastructure. And in the last review, it was confirmed that statistic has been maintained. But we also saw back in 2014 a 60% increase in employment, and I'm really happy to report that that's been maintained also. But we've also seen a reduction in negative social indicators around domestic violence. And in particular, we saw a 50% reduction in adult court appearances. And when I spoke to members of the justice group, they said that that has declined by another 50%. So Elder Marianne Coconut and I are off to Toronto in September, and this is the good news story that we want to share. We want to be able to stand on the global stage and say to the world, you know, in this remote part of far North Queensland, we've taken a step forward. We tried something. It's worked, and this is a message for everybody to hear and a framework that we can share.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, best of luck with that. Be most interested to hear the outcome of that when you return back to Australia. And we wish you every blessing on your journey over there. Thank
you very much. And Marianne's listening, so a big hello to Marianne in Napranum.
and hello from me as well. Boy, gamer than me getting on those aeroplanes going overseas, I can tell you.
It's going to be huge.
For Annalise, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for listening and for taking such a wonderful interest in